Uh, okay, there are people there. Hey, okay, we are live. It is great to be here and to see all of you again. So, all tech stuff worked out. We're here. I'm super happy about it and excited about having this conversation tonight. Um,
Uh,
so have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Tony Hampton, who is an obesity specialist and who has devoted a lot of his work to helping patients with diabetes and finding a natural nutritional therapy that allows people to improve their health and even reverse their diabetes. So this is I am excited to hear about all the things that he's working on tonight, and then take your questions. I would love to hear what your questions are, and let's let the doctor speak. So, oh wow, all right, we have tons of people coming, and they're saying hello. They're excited. Yeah.
awesome. I'm happy and just excited to be here. And I think that we all need support and coaching and positive attitudes. And so I try as a physician to bring that. Even when I worked in my previous life before I started taking care of, I'm a family doctor. And I trained at, I was at Xavier University in Louisiana for my undergrad. And then I went to Chicago Medical School. But I chose family practice so that I could kind of know a little bit about everything. But that way of thinking as a family doctor is to support the family and the team. But what I learned as I got into my career, and I delivered a lot of babies in the early part of my career, I learned that you have to support and encourage, because a lot of the babies I delivered were from moms who were teenagers in a underserved community. So I delivered girls that were 12 twice. I delivered. I'm not. I know it's a horrible thing to hear, but what I would do is tell my team, let's talk to this young person in a way that honors and respects them, because you don't understand the things that led to that decision. And when you look at it, a lot of them didn't have support, or they only got love through that relationship. This other young person who uh, that they fell in love with and had a baby with. So my job was not to demonize them, but to create a path so that they could, maybe make a better choice. But they needed somebody to hold on to them and to coach them along the way. So I actually miss those days because I don't deliver babies anymore. I pretty much have an adult population, but that kind of got me into that mindset. I have to be more than just a doctor. I have to be a coach. I have to be a therapist. I got to be a pastor. You got to do all of those things. And I think that's what's cool about this community, is that it provides some support in a world that's going to look at you like you're like some type of weirdo, and they won't understand the science, and they won't understand the whys, and that there's no more science and these other approaches than this. So what you do is you just have to have somebody to help hold your hand. So me as a family
And that's
doctor.
what we do very well here at the Black Carnivore community. We hold hands, we
Yes,
take care of each other, we teach each other. So
love it.
definitely come join the family. I want you to like, subscribe, and hit the little bell notification so you can get all the notifications when I put up a video. Sorry, go back.
Love it.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no,
Good
I
doctor.
love that. And so what I'm trying to do in my career as a physician in a large health system, Advocate Aurora is a large health system, the ninth or 10th largest not-for-profit in the country. So there are a lot of standards of care, how we do things. And guess what they do? They follow dietary guidelines. Guess what they do? They follow what we call HEDIS measures. And the things that we have to do are the things that are considered standard, which are not what you guys are doing or what I'm doing in my practice, right? So in order to navigate that, I have to do two things. One is I have to be in the health system that allows me to be an independent doc, and they do. Amen to that. But I also want to, as a regional medical director, and I'm on the weight management committee as we develop the weight management program. So what you have to do is get involved and say, hey guys, I'm here, and there's another way of looking at things. Luckily for me, there's probably about 5 or 6 other board certified docs who are also on the weight management committee, and they do understand low carb and keto and all of that type of stuff, and they don't feel that fat's a problem. So what we're trying to do is balance that, and our balancing mechanism is metabolic disease. So if we don't talk, the extremes to our colleagues, we say we're just trying to do metabolic disease, and the question is, how do you get there? And then, by the way, yeah, you can do it maybe you can do it as a vegetarian that's not doing too much starch, but guess what? You can also do it as a carnivore. So if we can have a recipe of options for people that will allow them to achieve their goal, then it honors everybody. And then what you're doing is you open the door for everybody to have an opportunity to learn these methods. And I had a patient today who was having allergies like crazy, and I had not been recommending carnivore in my practice only up until a couple of months ago. I've been doing keto and low carb forever, but this patient, I said, you know what? I think you need to consider carnivore because you sound like somebody that would have a tremendous turnaround. And so she did make a pledge today that she would do a month or two of that just as an experiment. And then I said, if it goes well, we'll continue. I will keep you alive in the meantime. You won't kill yourself. And we're going to
send her
measure
to my stories. I'm allergic to corn and soy, and when I took out dairy, my asthma went away. So
Wow.
I have always struggled
Okay.
with allergies, eczema, and asthma. So if she doesn't believe, like it is possible to now walk around without Flonase, Sudafed, and tissues. So.
And that's what she's taking Flonase, loratadine, and it's like yeah. And this is what I told her. I said, we have the best allergists in the country, literally, like president of the Allergy Society previously, right? So, but I'm not sure that all of these professionals were trained in dietary approaches. So they are very smart. They know what they're doing, but they typically just play with the medicines until they get the right formula together. And my job is and I'll still let you have conversations with them, but what I'm trying to do is get to the root cause. And if we get rid of what's bothering you, and it's probably not meat. So if we get to the root cause, then I think that for her, this would be a game changer. So I'm really curious how that turns out for her, but I'll definitely make sure she has your story in mind, because I think that hearing stories, which is what's great about this community, is it helps a lot, So I'm very excited about that.
So for somebody who is trying to do that and use this as a sort of like an elimination diet, and then start practicing or checking to see what things work for them, like how would you guide them to do that? Like if somebody in the community were trying to do that at home, like
absolutely,
it's a complicated process.
There are. The first thing you have to do is understand what are the things that cause allergies, and you already mentioned it. So we know nuts and seeds do. We know dairy does. We know the fish, the eggs, the shellfish. So what you do is you say, what are the 7 or 8 things that cause allergies, and those things need to go. We can print out what we call an elimination diet and literally just hand them, eat these things. The things I just mentioned, don't eat those. And what you do is you do that for about, a few weeks, maybe. I think it's about 4 weeks or so. And then after you do that, then you start to add a few things. This is not a carnivore. This is just we want to get back some of those things that they can eat, but we don't know what. So, and then within 12 to 24 hours after adding back one of those items, they pay attention for symptoms. And if over 3 days they don't have symptoms, then they're allowed to go to another item. But you have to be careful because there may be wheat in this other product that you don't think about versus, you know what I mean? And wheat's on the list too. So now, if they're allergic to everything, like the patient I talked to today, she would have to do something a little different. She would have to start with, we usually tell them to start with, I know it sounds weird, but lamb, some pears, and water. So So they'll eat lamb, pear. I know. Don't ask me how they came up with that combination. Lamb, pear, water for 5 days,
I mean,
and
I could
then
see
more.
doing that with apricot, maybe. I could see putting in a recipe
Don't ask
together.
me. I'm just a student still with the University of Western States. But so what happens is once you do that for 5 days, then you can start adding other items. Initially, you avoid the things in the category of known allergens, but then you can start adding items gradually. Again, over 3 days, see how you do. You have a journal, and then you go from there. So that's the way, because it's almost like you have to reset your body, which is why carnivore is so cool, because it's like a reset. You pretty much eliminate all the things that can harm you. All the processed foods are gone, obviously. You obviously eliminate all the sugars and starches, obviously. So your gut's like, oh my God, you're not inflaming me all of a sudden. And even the nuts and seeds that seem innocent, they're like charry to your system. So basically what the elimination diet does is it eliminates all the bad stuff that can harm you, and then you add it back. And then for some people, when you reset the body, your body, your gut and your stomach, what it does is it heals just enough that you can tolerate a little of that stuff in a way that you couldn't before, which is really weird. I like a model where if you identify something that bothers you, you just kind of just eliminate it permanently, and then you'd rarely have it. But I think that's the approach. And that's kind of why I went back to school to learn nutrition and functional medicine, because I needed more found. I understand the basic concepts of low carb and keto and all of that kind of stuff, but when you have a challenging patient before you and they're desperate, and then they say, Dr. Hampton, I heard you were the best doctor in the world, and then you want to honor that statement by actually being able to do something different. But if they come to me and then I give them this, a variation of another prescription, they walk away not feeling whole. They walk away with no hope. And what I try to do is give them a different approach. So I want to be a little bit of an integrative medicine where I do, if you need brain surgery, you're going to get brain surgery. But the question is, what kind of body are you going to be left with, rather you have surgery or not? And I want to, if you get a kidney transplant, what am I putting a new kidney in? I want to put in a body that is going to be able to receive that kidney and keep it healthy. So we need to, and again, I would argue that the University of Western States leans more vegetarian. However, their philosophy of root cause analysis that's the thing I'm getting from them. And I argue with them about the saturated fats and things like that, but I still learn a ton. So yes, it's okay if you're looking at MSNBC to go to Fox News and listen to that sometimes. What happens, because it'll provide perspective. If you've never
Right.
listened to the other side, then you're like indoctrinated. And if you only listen to carnivores, then you're never gonna be able to hear the other side. And I never want to be the kind of doctor who actually gets a good argument from a vegan, and I can look at the data and it's a legitimate study, and then I still want to deny them that. That would not make any sense. Then I'm not being a scientist. Any good scientist will be happy when people question their data. That's what science is. That's what it's all about. So I think that if anybody listening who was able to move in this direction was comfortable being an outlier, was comfortable questioning things, was comfortable. What I don't want you to do is be just a follower, and then when somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, you should try this, you just go and start following that. You should be a little bit more scientific about it and say, you know what, let me do some research, let me check into this, let me fill things out, and then I need to see some data or some empiric data. So I'm very excited about being able to give people a different way of approaching how they see their disease. And I want them, just like a little baby or a little child, why did this happen? They ask questions that they're like, Dad, why is the sky blue? And I need to figure that out. Why is the sky blue? I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out before the day is over. And I think it makes us think differently. So we need to go back to our childhood.
Well, can you give us a little bit more context about you? So you're
Yeah.
currently practicing, like you have patients and you see them all day.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you're also like Well, you just told me before we got on, going back to school, God only
Like
knows
crazy.
why, and you're
Yeah,
already
nobody.
a doctor and working full time and raising two
What?
kids.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do you want to tell us about that and then how that
Yeah.
leads into, your podcast and the other work that you're doing?
Yeah. Well, it's actually I consider it my cheat. Let me tell you what I mean. So I needed when I was doing research about diabetes because a family member gets diabetes and they don't want to be on medicine. What I ended up doing was I said, so while I'm doing this research on diabetes, I might as well write a book. And then when I remember when I was doing real estate back in the day, I used to be a broker in real estate, believe it or not. And when
Wait,
I was
wait,
learning,
wait, wait. So before you were a doctor, you
yes,
were a real estate broker.
actually even worse, while I was a doctor, I actually became a broker while I was a doctor because I was doing real estate investing. And then I was having a little success with that, and people were like, "Well, what are you doing?" And then I was like, "Oh, I'm doing." It literally started with Carlton Sheets and looking at his videos, and then I was like, "Well, I want to get more." So I ended up becoming a broker because what I do is as you
So your
learn.
studies weren't too challenging then, it sounds like. It was kind of like
No,
a
it was a
breeze.
pain in the butt. No, I mean, what you do is listen. This is what I did in real estate. I would I would see the material, I would read it and record myself in question format. And while I'm driving to deliver a baby, I would listen to it. There was no time to study, so my car was my my study hall.
Okay.
But my philosophy is learn it, and then if you can get something tangible while you're learning it, why not? So if I can become a broker while I'm learning, I'm not going to get a degree from Carlton Sheets necessarily, but I will get it from this, getting this degree in real estate, this broker's license. I could also do this. I wanted to learn how to run my business, so might as well get an MBA. So I went to get an MBA because
Wait,
why
I'm
not?
sorry. You have an MD, an MBA, and you're
Yeah, why?
getting and you're getting a degree in nutrition.
Why not? I mean,
So
I
for
know,
for
but yeah.
everyone who's listening, in my former life, I was getting a PhD in anthropology, and I went straight through from college to grad school, and I spent 8 years in grad school. And when I quit school, I swore I would never go to school again, not to study underwater basket weaving, not for any reason.
I
But
know.
you
School is,
are like,
yeah,
let's
yeah,
keep going. I don't have
that's
enough to
right.
do.
Well, and what I do also is sometimes I'll spread it out a little bit. So even though I'm taking 2 classes right now, I spread it out. And that way, so even though I'm not doing it in this moment, when I did my MBA, I kind of spread it out a little bit. So instead of just doing it in a couple of years or a year, I kind of did like 4 years. I just spread it out. And that way it wouldn't impact the family as much.
Sure.
But this is the key though. So the philosophy is return. So I learned in business return on investment, right? So my return on investment is greater if I get something tangible. You get a little bit more credibility, blah blah blah. And then but this is the secret sauce. So if like my last like if I tweeted 7 times recently, other than retweets, I'd say 4 of those 7 tweets were based on what I was learning in school. And I just kind of saw a way to message it that was low carb friendly. And so what
So
it
you
does
heard
is
it here, folks. If you are interested in the latest information about low carb, just go and follow the Good Doctor on
that's
Twitter.
right. That's
And
right.
I hope someone will check out his Twitter handle and put it in the chat so that everybody has it, because I don't think I put that down. But what's your Twitter handle?
Absolutely. It's just it's Dr. Dr. Tony Hampton. So
Okay.
DrTonyHampton. Yeah, and that's been kind of cool. I got that built up a little bit, and that's probably where I met my low carb community, to be honest.
Mhm.
If it wasn't when I just interviewed Amy Berger, we talked about the Alzheimer's antidote book that she wrote, and we talked about her weight loss stall slayer book. And basically, I know her through Twitter. I know Nina Tycoids through Twitter. I know Dr. Ken Berry through Twitter. I know Dr. Andy Fong and Dr. Jason Fong through Twitter. Twitter is like a gift because it allows you to have a conversation like we're having with people who actually may respond to it. And so I was able to kind of build that up by sharing stories, but more importantly, to see what they're talking about and to comment on that information. So, but when I talk to my patients, they're like Twitter. Like none of my patients use Twitter. So it's like a different kind of animal.
Yeah.
They do Facebook and they may do Instagram, but Twitter is like what? But for me, Twitter is where I can have a conversation with like-minded people and people obviously who are not like-minded. It's a little bit of a arguing opportunity, but what I try to do is be respectful because I think everybody has to find their own path, you know. So I'm okay with this ideal of doing things differently because another thing I learned from the University of Western States is this, you know, everything's interconnected, but at the same time, our genetic expression is based on where we started, what we've been exposed to. And so I could have a twin brother, and I don't, but if I had a twin brother who lived in California and they had different exposures than I had throughout their life, whether it's emotional or environmental, they may end up at risk or not at risk for completely different things. So it's so funny. Somebody started following me on Twitter. Apparently, they're taking your advice. But
well, this community is super, super smart. Loves really good scientific information, and so you know you're gonna have good questions, and you're gonna have good followers.
That's good. Good to hear. So yeah. So I just think for me, it's just about this is your genetic expression is a reflection of your environment, which is how I came up with the rope and the nest. So what is that all about? Well, it's just the root causes of disease. It's like if I start with the nest, does your diet affect your genetic expression? 100%. Of course, I threw in intermittent fasting. Shout out to the fasters in the room. My first meal today was at 2. And it was I promise you, I had some leftover steak, bacon, sausage, and eggs. That's it. So I was true to the carnivore, inspired by you guys, right?
Yeah.
And wow. JD Davis, I mean, the followers, Instagram, they're coming. So thank you guys. So yeah, you guys are like serious.
And while you're doing that, hit the like button here and hit the subscribe button.
Yes, please do that. That's how we do it. So this is the thing. So the E, it does, whether or not you exercise affect your genes. They do. Whether or not you get enough sleep or not, yes. If you're living a stressful life, does that affect not only does it affect your genes, but if you have a baby inside your body. When I did my obesity boards, just basically stress and even obesity when you're pregnant affected the health of the baby as they were being formed. It was and the T is for trauma, clearly, and then how you think. So if you think a certain way and it's negative, it affects everything about your life. It affects whether or not you're going to get sick or not. I literally feel some sniffles, and it's just like the people at church. Not in the name of Jesus, it's not going to happen. You literally can claim
I don't claim sickness.
Right. You literally can talk it out of your body. Now, do I do my echinaceas and things like that? Sure, if I feel something. But my point is, since I've been mentally in a different place, I'm able to talk away illness. And then the rope, relationships. If you're in a dysfunctional relationships, the chances are very high that you're going to have high blood pressure or that you're going to have high blood sugars, etc. So your relationships matter. We're not trying to divorce people tonight. We're just saying if you're in a dysfunctional relationship, either get some help for that.
So how is it all of that for people right now? Because during quarantine, I would imagine, bad relationships became 1,000 times worse. So
I hear a lot of stories, and I do have older patients, so I'm not necessarily hearing about abuse type stuff, because a lot of times they're not, they're in a relationship where they're at that point where that's not as likely. But in terms of the mood being down, absolutely. They're basically isolated watching the news all day. And and you watch, you got to deal with the knee on somebody's neck issue. You got to deal with the fact that they're afraid to leave the house issue. And what happens is like I've never seen over the last, as much success as I see over the last 3 to 5 months. I've seen more people kind of slip off the wagon a little bit than I've in my entire practice. It's just, but I also say to them, if there's ever a time when you're going to slip, this is now. So own that, be okay with that. But at the same time, I do have success stories. Let's figure out how we can make you a success story. I use the podcast as a reflection of the fact that we had a pandemic. We were so slow in clinic that I had time to look at YouTube videos on how to make a podcast. So actually,
nobody uses time more effectively than you. So I'm surprised you haven't built a rocket and had an opportunity to visit Mars briefly.
Well, I tell you, it's this is the way I see it. When you're 52 years old, you have to say, if things go well, I got 52 more years, right? But I need to optimize every day. Like if you ever wanted to write a book, start writing. If you ever wanted to do a YouTube video, and if you notice, my YouTube videos lately have all been live streams. Why? Because I don't have time for all of that editing stuff. So I just live stream. It is what it is, like we're doing now. If I say something wrong, if I say it in Ebonics, whatever, it's going to be what it's going to be. But you have to be comfortable with that. And I had to be comfortable being Tony. And once I got comfortable with who I was, I felt, I think there's enough people out there who are going to be okay with who I am. And I don't have to be Dr. Oz or anything like that. Just be Tony, and then that'll be enough. So now what I think we need now, which is why I'm talking to you now, people need to hear information, they need to get content, and I need to just deliver what I add. While I'm learning, I share what I've learned, what I'm learning, and then we all are going to grow together. But what I do know for sure is that when we do low carb and keto and carnivore, people get better. Now, what happens in 50 years, I'll figure that out as we go along. But I take people off medicines just regularly now. Never did it in my entire career until this happened. So I always plead to my clinical colleagues, why not try something that's completely different than what you're accustomed to, but that'll actually get the results that you went to get your training for? We all went to get training so we can help people. And helping people does not mean maintaining them on medicines for the rest of their lives. So you want to make them, give them the energy to want to go and chase their grandchild. That's the gift. And I hear people sharing stories like that. So it's been really incredible. But and the rest of that rope is the organisms. And the organisms are good bacteria, bad bacteria for your gut, for example, Bacteroides, Firmicutes. Firmicutes is the one you don't want, Bacteroides in terms of weight gain. You don't want coronavirus, right? So being responsible. The P is for pollution. And so many, if you live in Flint, Michigan, you know what happened to our babies there. If you live on the south side of Chicago, pollution in some of the factories. So those are factors that need to be understood. Even if I can't necessarily move my COPD patient from the house that's next to the factory, but I need to have awareness of that when I'm trying to figure out why they're always sick, right? And then the E is for emotions and life experiences. So I just think it's really important that we understand that our emotions affect everything within us and around us. So if I come to work because things are not going well at home or whatever, I may then impact the people who I work with. In fact, I had another patient today, because I did video visits today, and she was so upset because the surgeon was so dismissive of her and essentially said, we can do this surgery for your hernia, but as he walked out the door, he said, but it's going to come back until you take care of and basically her weight. Now, how dismissive was that? That why did you even have to throw that in, doctor? And so we need to. So our emotions. So maybe now the question is, why did he do that? Did he do that because he got some issues at home? Is it because of his? When I did my OB, I did C-sections and tubals as a family. I said a fellowships. I did that, and so. But I noticed that when I was in surgery with some of these surgeons, they were just like throwing stuff and yelling at people, and it was like, what? So maybe how he was raised, how he was trained, may have made him who he is. Not to make excuses for him, but if I understand that, then at least I understand it. I'm still going to make him accountable. And just like with Trump, his niece, I think, wrote a book about him, and she shared stories. And what happens is you understand why Trump is the way he is, because you understand how he was created. So and then so it's life experience, emotion. So if you take all of those things in that nested rope, and of course, acronyms are cute, and so that's why I came up with an acronym.
So
what
Protecting Your Nest is your podcast, which is also, you put your podcast also on YouTube, and then you put other content on your YouTube as well.
Yes,
that's
it's
separate
confusing.
from the podcast. Yeah.
I just I
get it.
Let me tell you what I had to do as of tomorrow. So when Amy Burgers is released, instead of having one thumbnail, I'm gonna have a thumbnail for the video and the Facebook, and I'm gonna have a separate thumbnail for the podcast, because people will watch the YouTube and think, oh, I just watched your podcast. So they don't realize, even though in the YouTube, I'll say, hey, we just had a podcast, check it out later. Let's talk, but people just miss that. So
you gotta use a completely different thumbnail.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, so I'm learning. So that's what I'm gonna. As of tomorrow, I have a completely different. So I'll post. Okay. If I go to LinkedIn, I'll have a LinkedIn for the YouTube and a LinkedIn, because actually we talked about completely different topics.
Wait, I'm sorry. So you have a LinkedIn account, which is for you, the doctor, and you also post your podcast and your YouTube videos there.
Yes, because what you do is you look at people who you respect. So if Dr. Ken Berry does that, then I'm going to do it, because he has 1 million subscribers.
Sure. Sure.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because he'll do a video on YouTube. It'll be like 40,000 views. On LinkedIn, it may only be 10 likes, but it doesn't matter. So for me, it's like, just put the information in front of people, and whoever sees it, rather they think it's appropriate. Facebook, is it appropriate to have this on Facebook? I don't know. I just know that people who are on Facebook have problems with weight and diabetes and heart disease and stroke. And if it's not for you, go to the post that shows somebody's baby or dog. But I need to make sure I'm honoring who I am, and I was born to teach. I was born to inspire. So for those who need that information, I want to make sure. So I try to put it on all those different social media platforms. That way it's out. So for tomorrow morning, when the podcast is made available for Amy Berger, I'm just gonna, in the morning, I'll just put it in all those things real quick. And I just try to make it simple, and that's what I like about StreamYard and Facebook, YouTube Live, is that I can make a thumbnail, and all I gotta do is do the live. And that way I can still be a medical director and be in school and have a family and see patients. And I don't have time to, oh, that's so funny. Amy Berger just said, recorded a podcast and live video yesterday with the fabulous Dr. Tony Hampton. That's Twitter. So she's kind of getting us ready for tomorrow. These announcements are, not good. But anyway, so it's really exciting, because I came from 5-6 years of doing this. And then I discovered you guys, right? So it's like, what's cool about this is
Wait, I'm sorry, you've been doing the podcast for 5 or 6 years?
No, just the lifestyle. No.
Oh,
the podcast is new. Yeah, I've been doing the low carb clinical work, and Twitter started a few years ago, but I wasn't active like I am today. The podcast, literally episode 7. But because of Twitter, you can attract the people who know what they're talking about. But I also hope to have patients who know what they're talking about to share their personal stories, right? So I think you have to have a mixture of the so-called experts along with the people who are also having the experience. And that way, if the right person shares the story at the right moment for the right person, all of a sudden that may inspire them. Because as much as I can sit here and tell people, oh yeah, this is good for you and you can do it, they'll say, oh, you've been healthy all your life, doc. They'll look at my body and say, oh, you never had a weight problem, you don't get it. But if I have a patient who lost 50 pounds in 6 months or whatever, they may listen to that. They may not. That's when I did my second episode, it's a guy that came from Miami, saw me, and he lost 30 pounds in 3 months. He's a barber. He's somebody. He's more of a blue collar guy, and maybe they'll look at him and say, if he can do it, I can do it. They'll get it. And I think that's what I'm trying to do. I want to be able to talk to the CEO, and I want to be able to talk to the barber. And that's, if you can't do both, then you're not really adding the level of value that you should be. If I'm this highfalutin doctor sitting high, then I will be just as arrogant as that surgeon who made those inappropriate comments. I don't ever want to be that guy. And if I have a bad day at home, I want to be able to still show up at work and put on my acting hat, but also be vulnerable enough to, if a patient says, "Are you okay?" say, "I'm not okay. I'm having a hard day, and I'm glad you asked, and thank you. And if necessary, pass the tissue." I'm okay with that, because I think we live in a society where we don't allow, particularly our Black men, to be vulnerable. I mean, there's so many opportunities where they can grow as human beings. How are they going to be able to talk to their little daughter if they're not able to be vulnerable themselves? Or there's a little boy who fell and scratched his knee. Instead of saying, get up and man up, say, you know what, are you okay? And it's okay to cry right now, because that looks like that hurts. Let him cry. And then tell him to man up after that. So it's all about just being comfortable in your own skin.
Mm-hmm. So you've got, I mean, I'm really impressed with what you're doing here. Not only getting the degrees so that you have the certifications and the qualifications, but also really trying to provide the stories and the testimony on the other end, so that everybody feels like they're a part of this. And so you've named your podcast Protecting the Nest, so that you can kind of focus on those issues that you think are most important. And you have now become like a keto warrior, like the rest of us. I mean, I too, kind of got into this because, I've struggled with my weight for years, and, feel like so much of my life was consumed with thinking about what I was going to eat and how many calories it was and all of this kind of stuff. And felt really frustrated. And then when I learned about this way of eating, it was like, I had no idea it was so easy. I mean, I was just given wrong information, and it's wasted decades of my life. It killed my mother, and I just want to make sure that this information is available to anybody who wants it and needs it. And so I kind of started this community because, I want to see myself reflected, and if no one else is there, I need to stand up and do it myself. So that's why, I am here. And, but what I feel like is happening is, this keto is, it requires to understand how a ketogenic diet works, and why you can't just eat, like some rice sometimes. And it requires a bit of education, and I don't feel like we're always getting it. So, how do you have the time to educate a patient? Like, I assume you get like 15 minutes, a half an hour, and, how do you make that clear to patients?
It's really, I was going to go grab my device. I do have a note-taking service. So part of it is the note-taking service. So I have a company called IKS, and they do virtual note-taking. And when I saw that opportunity, versus having, I could do a live person. We offer that too. But I just felt like since I have this other option, it makes more sense to just have a iPad instead of another person. And then if that person gets sick or something, it's just a more complicated. So part of it is that, but what happened before that was I just made sure I had a handout that would explain things, and it's almost like life is simple. You just said it right. Now I think obviously of all the diets, carnivore is probably the simplest, right? So I would give patients, here are the things you can eat, and here are the things you should avoid. And your job.
Uh-oh. We've lost sound. Nope. um, Okay, so everybody hit the like button, like, subscribe, and hit the little bell notification. We're having a great conversation here. And as soon as he gets back, I'm going to, go ahead and, start going through your questions here. So, make sure, I see some questions have gone by in the chat, but go ahead and, put some more questions in here because I know we got some great information. Maybe take out the headphones. It's possible they died or they stopped connecting. I can't hear you. I love that, Ronnie. Not today, Satan. Not today. Well, at least we got quite a lot of conversation done, and I found this really invaluable. I think, and I think it's important for us to be here for, Dr. Hampton. The problem that people with any kind of credentials have is that they, they're getting a lot of pushback from the institutions that are, part of, that are giving them the license and whatnot. So we have to really support them. And let's see. We have to really provide a lot of support. And so liking, supporting, here being part of the
Okay, sorry about
community.
that.
Yes, I can hear you. And
Yeah,
yes,
what
I can
happened
see
was
you.
I have my answering service sometimes when I'm on Skype videos, when they call, because the messages are critical and it just zaps us. I don't know. So hopefully that won't happen again. But where would I leave? Where did I leave off? I can't
That's okay. So you, oh gosh, I don't know where you were either.
Yeah, okay. That's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, you were
I
talking.
can't.
So I was asking you about how you explain this to patients when you don't
Right,
have a
right,
lot
right,
of
right. Okay,
time.
okay. So if so what I have, so first of all, I talked about the virtual note taking. So I don't have to write notes. I just taught, and they write the notes for me. I get all my notes the next day. Number two, so I have a little bit more time to teach. I always have handouts. So in their summary, I have little buttons on my computer that tell them what to do. And I'll have like weight loss visit number 1, weight loss visit number 2, and it has all the talking points. And I share all the talking points like this. And then I say everything I said, don't write nothing down, just listen. And then they'll take that. Then I created so everybody should go and look at the, why adopt a low carb diet. So just Dr. Tony Hampton, why adopt a low carb diet, or just go to my channel, and how to adopt a low carb diet. I made that for my patients so that they could get the science and then the how. And then what I do is I keep it simple. Don't think carnivore right now, just think keto. What's your animal? No flour, no cornmeal, no barbecue sauce. What's your non-starchy side or 2? That's it. And so I'll give them a list of all the non-starchy sides, and obviously the animals are easy. And for dinner, animal non-starchy side, you're done. And so what happens is people will figure out that it's not that hard. People will think people of color won't do this stuff. Let me tell you what I've learned. if you make it simple and you don't take away all their animals. If you try to do a vegetarian, I did a vegetarian diet for 8 years before I started doing keto, and I got 5-10% at best. And the irony is that nobody got off medicine. I started doing keto and low carb, and tons of people hundreds of people started getting off medicine. So it was
Wow.
pretty clear. I'm not exaggerating. It was just amazing. So you make it, and then the other piece is you have to accept that there are parts of your visit that you're required to do. A diabetic has to get a referral to the eye doctor, to the foot doctor. A diabetic has to get a hemoglobin A1C. They got to get their microalbumin. You got to do the little foot test. However, if you take that 15, 20-minute appointment and you say 5 to 10 minutes is dedicated to the stuff you got to do, and then 5 to 10 minutes dedicated to nutrition, what I tell my colleagues is that return on investment, going back to business school, if you don't do the nutrition piece, your return on investment is essentially zero because they're not going to get better. If you do the nutrition piece, your return on investment is 100% because they're going to get better. I mean, it's just, so what happens is if you don't do it, you're a failure. And I just refuse to see this person, 50-year-old young black man working 2 jobs with borderline kidney function, and I know they're going to be on dialysis in 5 to 7 years. So I just can't not tell them. It's almost like you have this secret, and if you don't tell them, I don't want nobody to come to me 5 years from now and say, Doc, you didn't tell me how serious this is. You didn't tell me that a little protein in my urine is a disaster about to happen. So I just felt, so now these resources are out there, and what I want to do with the podcast is to play coach. And what I tell my patients are, when you're driving somewhere, when you're making dinner for the family and nobody's around, it's just you. I'm there to coach you with these other experts on a different way of looking at the world. Think about it. I mean, Amy Berger is saying you can literally take somebody that's on the verge of dementia and flip that around. When I interviewed Joan Iflin on the 18th, and she wrote the book on food addiction, processed food addiction. And she's going to tell people who always thought they were addicted, but now we got proof. We got at least a few people in the world saying, you know what, if you meet this criteria, and people need to hear that so that they'll, and then you had Dr. Ken Berry on, and he's saying, I'm carnivore and I'm doing just fine. All my reflux is gone, my allergies are gone, and we just need to get those people in front of these folks so that they can then be comfortable doing the things that they would have never done. And that's what's so cool about it. So the podcast to me is the coaching and I guess the YouTube as well, but it's also to learn some things. One of the videos I made, insulin, doing a fasting insulin level. We need to do fasting insulin levels. Everybody who's listening should have their doctor do a fasting insulin level, because your pancreas will tell you in advance before you become diabetic, like years in advance. So if your pancreas is doing a great job keeping your blood sugar under control, and you check your sugar and it's okay, it's probably still not okay. But the insulin level is going to be high, and that'll tell you. And if that's true, that's a trigger. Everybody on this call should get a coronary artery calcium scan. Why would I do a cholesterol test, which is an indirect measure of heart disease, when I can do a test that tells me I got calcium plaques or not? So, and it's a $75. Are you worth $75 to $100? I don't care about your insurance. Get that type of test. But the docs don't order it as a standard. So that's why we need each other to get this message out, so that people will then say, you know what, I didn't know about this test. Doc, do you mind referring me or tell me where I can get this test? And if they say, I don't know anything about that, then you go to something called Google, and you find the nearest place that does a coronary artery calcium test in your area, and you get that test. And if you don't see plaques, don't get too excited. You want to keep it that way, and then you need to maintain an anti-inflammatory diet, these low-carb, keto, and paleo-type diets to keep your arteries healthy. So to me, these are just basic principles that we need to share. And the goal is to speak the language of the layperson. So when I did the Fix Your Diet, Fix Your Diabetes book, I was not writing it for a doctor. I was not writing it for a nurse. I was writing it for, my 75-year-old that's taking care of her grandbabies. And I could read that
Yeah.
book and understand it well enough to say, you know what, I'm gonna eat these greens. I love cornbread. She may cry talking about it, but she's gonna eat those greens. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's really who I
So
want to speak
everybody,
to.
I put the link to the book in the description of the video. So definitely go and order that if you haven't had an opportunity to read it, or send it to somebody. Better yet, send it to somebody who really needs that information.
Yeah, I think you just hit the button. Like, there's somebody that you can invest $12 in, right? Because, in fact, my biggest problem, and I think other people have said it to me, you're not a great marketer. I wrote that for my patients. I wasn't thinking about the rest of the world, and
Yeah.
I just wanted to give them. It was a workaround. So that's part of the answer to your question, which is, how do you teach this? Well, I say go to these websites. Take this summary, take these handouts, and for those who needed the book, they would get the book, and then that way they would come back and say, "Oh, I see it now," and they get it, and then that coaches them along. And so I'm telling you, it's just changing old belief systems. That's all.
Yeah. And I see
And
one of the members. So let's actually turn to the questions in the chat
yes,
box. But
please.
the one that just came up was, our doctors won't order anything not standard that insurance doesn't cover. So how do we get our own test ordered? Can we do DNA tests? What about medical tests?
Yeah, well, there are some. First of all, you got to ask yourself, if I'm going to do any type of genetic test, you got to make sure you understand why. So if you're saying to me that I can have a BRCA test for breast cancer, and I can actually do a breast surgery to fix that, that makes a lot of sense, right? If you say to me that I have a condition that will get better with lifestyle, and if they have genes for dementia, right? Even though it's a handful of people that's got those genetics, but the thing is, if you have those genetic components, not much can be done anyway, so you might as well just do the lifestyle anyway. So I think you have to decide, what kind of person are you? Some people, I think, if I think about myself, I'm almost more as comfortable just knowing what the right lifestyle is and not worrying about the test. So you have to decide who you are. So a lot of these genetic tests, I think the one for dementia, it's like an ApoE1 or something like that. But the one for dementia, you can get your doc to order that. But you can also do those genetic testing separate from your doc. You can definitely get the coronary artery calcium test maybe separate from your doc. Some systems require your doc because they want somebody to review it with you. I would not stay with a doc who would not order a scan that I requested because of an insurance issue. If I'm willing to pay for it, I would say to that doc, I really feel I've been doing education about this. I really want to do this test. Rather, it's a fasting insulin or a prescription pad to take to a facility to do this coronary artery test. So I think that you have to think of yourself as a customer, and you have to be comfortable saying to your doc in a very respectful manner that I definitely understand that this is something you're not familiar with or not comfortable with, but I've done a lot of research, and I really would feel honored if you would honor me with this prescription. And I really think I need to have a relationship with a doctor who can work with me so that we can kind of get to similar goals. So I
I
think
love
that a
that,
lot
to
of
think
time,
of
yeah.
ourselves as customers.
Yeah, you have to, and even docs don't like that, but that's the reality. Because guess what? We live in a. Why do you think we're doing video visits to our 30-year-olds? Because they're. I mean, I did a video visit today, and she was under the hair dryer, and she come out, talk a little bit, and I mean, but you have to be convenient for people, and we were able to accomplish everything we needed to. So so what I'm saying is that you are customers, and there's no reason why you would tolerate anybody. I told that same patient today who had an issue with that doctor. I said, "You just spent 30 minutes on the phone with me, but the only way you're going to affect change is to write a letter." You better write a letter, because just talking to, even though I'm a medical director, you need to write a letter, because even as a medical director, I need data. I need something tangible I can send to my vice president and my president that shows them I got 10 people complaining about this person. So I need you to do something about that. But if it's just hearsay or, in a corner talking to your buddy, that doesn't work. So that's really important.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, so I think we just have to have the courage to say I'm a customer, and the courage to say I'm scared. I have family with this stuff, and I need to know, because I'm thinking about making lifestyle changes, and I just want to know where I stand. Uh, these doctors are standing up high. That's a little. They're just people, and I think that if you come to them with the right tone, and you treat them like a human being as well, you kill them with kindness. Say, Doc, you know what? That's a great tie you got on today. But now that I compliment your tie, I was just doing research on this test, and even if you exaggerate a little bit, I've had some family members, blah blah blah. You just get them. They'll do it. You just have to know how to talk to them. And
Okay.
if they can't honor that, you need another doctor. I'm just being honest. I can't
Yeah.
imagine adult people talking to each other and not hearing each other. So we need to be able to work as a team.
Yeah. I see another question from Audra. I'm going back to earlier in the chat. I hope you address gout. So many people associate gout with the consumption of meat. I have other ideas, but please talk about why carnivores don't complain about gout.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think the key is there's competition with uric acid, which is the crystal from gout, and ketones. And if you eat a high fat or a high protein diet, which is what you're going to be doing with carnivore, your body's going to go into ketosis, which we love because it fixes a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
so so what happens is, if you're new to carnivore or just a keto diet in general, what happens is, if you don't ease into it, what'll happen is the ketones will outcompete the uric acid for getting rid of it in your body. So so what happens is, now all of a sudden, if you're prone to gout, the uric acid will be a little higher initially, because you're going to be getting rid of ketones, because your body doesn't really know how to use fat as fuel in the beginning. So instead of using all the fat fuel that you should be, you're going to be spilling it out. That's one of the reasons why urinary ketone is not a long-term strategy, because once your body becomes more efficient, you won't be spilling as many ketones. So you're thinking, am I not in ketosis? That's why the blood is a more accurate test. But the bottom line is this: when I tell people who are prone to gout, I say, let's make it a little bit more of a I do one or two things. I say, let's increase your medicine so that it'll kind of protect you during that little 1 or 2 week phase. Or I say, let's ease into it a little bit more gradually. To say that it causes gout is not correct. To say that it may flare up gout if you do it too quickly, or that's accurate. However, what a small price to pay, adjust your medicines or ease into it, to have a life free of chronic disease, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so unless a patient's an outlier, they should be able to ease into it without any problems. And rather, that's taking more of the allopurinol, or maybe just having a colchicine available during that initiation phase. For most people, a couple of weeks in, they're good to go. So that's
Yeah,
how I would
one of
handle
our
that.
members, he said too, he had gout and he was very young, and so really
Yeah,
stunned that he would even have it, but that it, initially with keto, like it kind
yeah,
of flared up, but then
yeah.
thereafter it's all good.
And one
So
more thing I would say about that: if you're in a category like the young guys you just talked about, it would be more appropriate not to go in and out of ketosis. In other words, you want to cheat less if that's who you are, because if you're going in and out, then you're risking having a flare every time you go back in. You know what I mean? So I
right.
think it's just like a person who's on keto or a diet like this, who's doing it for seizure prevention. Now, you want those types of people to ease into it and then stay in it for the most part. So I would want this gout So don't cheat as much. And if you do cheat, don't go too crazy. In
Yeah.
other words, I would prefer you cheat with keto-friendly desserts if you're gonna not be a carnivore and cheat. But try not to go too crazy because there's tons of things out there that allow you to cheat without going too far off the raft, you know. So
Yeah. Abigail says, I'm so happy you're answering about gout. My husband and I just recently switched to carnivore cold turkey, and right now he's having a gout flare up. Well, no worries. Just get through it,
yeah.
and then it'll be
And
gone.
and also
Yeah.
just definitely get the doctor to give you a colchicine. Just take a slightly higher dose of the medicine or take that. Most people just take allopurinol maintenance and colchicine for flares. He probably just needs the colchicine. Or he needs to just slow it down a little bit. But it's hard to you got to slow it down. So it's just a tricky. I think the medicine is probably a good way to go because it's hard to figure out exactly how much do I not eat in it. Yeah, so that's how. Oh Lord, let me decline that. Okay, I'm good. Are you still hear me?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Wow. So Audra is just like full of good questions. But
Yeah.
you guys keep putting questions in the chat box. So I definitely, well, I don't want to keep you too late, but I think we have time for a couple more questions. But something I would like to know, and I kind of got at this before, but like, how can we best support you? As a doctor, trying to talk about a way of eating that goes against all big business,
Right.
all the entire medical industry,
That's right.
against everything. Like part of the reason why I didn't care for getting more. Any kind of more certifications was because that kind of puts you at risk. So how can we support you as a community?
Well, I think part of it is like I name drop not just because I just want to name drop, but I think that when I mention Amy Berger, for example, it's partly to create awareness around different people who understand. So part of it is to make sure you guys continue to share the names of the people in the space who are doing things. The other part is if you have things like metabolic multiplier or diet doctor or Berta, you want to make sure that people, particularly clinicians, are aware that diet doctor has education for them. Free CME to learn this carb restriction in a very scientific way. Help and Adele Height.
Wait, sorry, CME is continuing medical education.
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
So for the docs, they have to do a certain amount of continuing medical education. In fact, all professions, nutrition, pharmacists, and the continuing medical education is to keep you reasonably current. And so if we can say to them, we have a free continuing medical education for you, which is unheard of, that teaches you about carb restriction and is evidence-based. And I thank Adele Height, Hite. She's also on Twitter, because what she did is she challenged everybody to do it the right way. So these are clinical guidelines. Tim Noakes in South Africa, the Tim Noakes Foundation has education for clinicians that they can then point to and say, you know what, I'm just following the guidelines I learned in my education. I'm certified in this. You don't have to have an obesity board certification, although I think that helps. You don't have to have a master's in nutrition, which I'll have in a year and a half. What you want to have is what standards have been created, because doctors, they follow standards. That's why we're so messed up now, because they never question the standards. So we have to kind of play this game where I don't necessarily believe standards make sense all the time. But if we're going to have standards, we need to give permission to them. They need to be told that low carb and very low carb, ironically, is now part of the ADA recommendations from American Diabetes Association. What?
Yeah.
They told you low carb for a year, a few years ago, and before that they said don't do it.
And
So
it's
now,
still, even now, it's still hard to find on the website. I Googled, and I went searching for the recommendation on the American
really,
Diabetic
and you
Association, and
couldn't
it's like,
find
well,
it.
yeah,
Where
there's
is
like
it?
not a tab. It's like, where is this?
Well, the when the College of Cardiology said, and that's another thing you want to message when they said that fat's not an issue, saturated fat's not an issue for heart disease. I didn't see nothing on CNN. I didn't see nothing on Fox
Yeah,
or MSNBC.
the
So
sleepy little
that's a
news.
right. So what you guys can do is help to share links to these things as we find them, and make sure the clinicians know, and then you continue to share empiric data and stories, so that as we have moments like this, and we share the successes. So what I'm going to do, and Dr. Andy Fong, Phung, he's in North Carolina. He shares the patients' successes, their numbers. So his inspiration is for me to do more of that, because I could probably do like all those 7 people I took off medicines the previous 2 weeks. Each of them had a story, so I should have posted every one of them.
Hmm.
So what we do is we share while recognizing what I want to do within my health system is to do some actual research myself, and then be more like Dr. Eric Westman, right? I need to. So I'm in a different. I could just go out and be like a social media guy and figure that out. I want to do a little bit of both, but I really want to be in a health system, because in some ways, although people will reach people this way, I think we'll reach more people if top health systems like your Mayo clinics and your Cleveland clinics and hopefully Advocate Aurora help to lead other health systems. Then I don't want to be like Dr. Eric Westman in a little pod here at Duke. I want it to be Duke's, and I'm not saying that, I'm being a little ignorant. I don't know exactly how well received he is. He's well respected, but my point is he just this guy in the corner outlier doing his thing, or is the entire system about wellness? That I want to see the
Hmm.
entire system, and that's where I hope to make a change within my health system, and that's my goal. And then I think it'll happen. You just have to understand how things work in a system and work within that, but push very hard, because people are dying. We can't afford to wait till more people die to make change. We have
Yeah.
to make a change now, and that requires a re-education, and that's why these CMEs and trainings are important, because there's going to be a lot of aha moments. I mean, when
Hmm.
people look at that podcast tomorrow with Amy Berger, who had never heard the term type 3 diabetes equals dementia, had never heard the possibility that you can actually slow down, and in many cases, when you give the brain ketones as fuel, which is what happens with carnivore versus glucose, it can actually recover.
Hmm.
That's huge news. That should have been on CNN and MSNBC
Yeah.
and Fox.
Right.
That should have been it should be on the first. I mean, imagine that type of news, and yet I don't hear anybody talking about it. All they talk about is what's the new drug that's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's just, so we have to do better, and that's, so I think you guys are, and I think just understanding where clinicians are coming from, and just saying we understand change is difficult. We understand we're creatures of habit. But we just want to make sure you've heard these other stories, and these stories of success can't be ignored, you know,
So
and
as
that's
we
how we do
collect
it.
ourselves, I mean, I started to wonder. I mean, we're not huge numbers yet,
Yeah,
but should we be doing our own survey? I mean, would that be helpful to
yeah.
anybody?
I think what's helpful. I agree that what's helpful is I think what you're saying is true. In fact, one of the things that if you're like, I'm one of the low carb panel experts for the diet doctor, right? So what we do is they send me stuff, and we share our opinion based on our experience, right? So if we're able to collect data and share that data, I think that that's helpful, because, and there's enough people out here doing this where that's a possibility. So while I'm kind of getting myself ready to grab a group of folk to do a low carb study, I think that anything we do to kind of get more of that information out sooner would be helpful. And I'll
I
definitely
mean,
continue to ponder
I
this
mean, I would
this
like to know
thinking.
specifically, like, studies hardly ever get done on us specifically. So it would be great to be able to
Yeah,
look at, black people specifically who are eating a
yeah,
ketogenic diet, whether it's carnivore or keto,
that's
we're
right.
all in ketosis. So how is this way of eating
Yeah.
impacting us? How does that affect our diabetes or whatever is going on? So you tell me, like, I don't know how many people you need in order to make it like a meaningful, helpful exercise.
Not a lot, but I think the more the merrier. So in other words, if I do a study with 50 to 100 people, that's plenty. I mean, if you
Oh, we
think
can do
about
that.
Dr. Yeah, think about it, right,
I was thinking
exactly. If
500 or a
no,
thousand.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you need more, but I'm saying, think about Dr. Ornish. I mean,
Hmm.
Dr. Ornish, I mean, I don't remember the number, but was it even 50 people? I can't remember, but all I know is this. He was able, with those 50 people, whatever the number was, somebody can look it up right now. He was able
Change
to
the state
show,
of the world with
right,
50
he
people.
showed regression.
Yeah.
He showed plaque regression. So it didn't take 100 people. It just took a small number. So what I'm saying is that number would still be enough. But does it? If you're trying to think about really, really good data, you do want the numbers to go into that number you mentioned. If you can get, I mean, you like, because the thing is, it gets really expensive depending on how things are done when you start getting the numbers too high. Now, again, we're what we're going to do is probably just educate, and then there's assumptions being made about are people doing A, B, and C. So it's not, I doubt we'll be, giving them meals. I mean, you can put them in a cage and say, eat this for 6 months, right? Those are
Right.
expensive studies, but we're probably talking more about let's the thing that's interesting about keto is that you can get a feel for whether or not people are doing it based on some numbers, right? So even if you argue, we can't be sure if somebody comes to me with triglycerides of 180 and I see them later and it's 60, they doing keto. I mean, period. So they're doing. I don't know if the carbs are perfectly where you want it to be, but they're doing that. So I think there's a way to kind of filter
Hmm.
through that. So nutritional science will never be perfect, but I think with the community that you have, and I think the other piece to this is you have to. What are we measuring? So I mean, anything that's dealing with metabolic syndrome is important. So if we're able to measure, you're still okay, right? I keep seeing these things
Hmm.
pop up.
Yeah.
Um, every I think metabolic, blood pressure, blood glucose, the triglycerides, HDL, and the waist circumference. The hardest part is the waist circumference because it's not standard.
Hmm.
So that may be, but metabolic syndrome says you don't have to have all five, right? So 3 out of 5. But that would be my hope in my health system is that waist circumference becomes a standard. Now, if we're doing our study, it'll be required that people get a waist circumference because of the things we're measuring. You could argue the waist circumference is the most predictive of heart disease in a lot of ways. So
Hmm.
we want to make sure we're measuring that. So that's how I would angle it. What are the
And Mia
metrics that we
asks
need to
about
get?
tracking the study participants with CGMs.
Yeah, I think that's a great point because although we struggle with getting those approved all the time, I think that type of technology would make a huge difference. And
Hmm.
if we could integrate it into our electronic medical record somehow, and I think there's a way to do that. So I completely agree with that. Any type of data tool that's going to give us a little bit more of a scientific edge is going to be helpful. But this is what we need. So the questions you're asking are valid because we're trying to get buy-in to the people who are the gatekeepers. And at the end of the day, if I have a doc who has 2,500 patients to whatever number, that person affects 2,500 lives. So if
Hmm.
so if that person is here And then they have another layer above them, and this layer above them says, I want to see a lot of my doctors do this. That's why health, I can't remember. I mean, like 72,000 employees. So how many patients do we serve? You don't want to know. We have tons of hospitals everywhere. So imagine the impact if we have a few health systems saying, I want to do this. And if it goes well, then the insurer said, I want to be with a health system that's doing that because I'm saving a gazillion dollars. Because one test strip is a dollar. Every time you check your blood sugar, it's $1.
Yeah.
That's insanity. That's just the one.
I mean,
we
I
haven't
don't
touched on the
understand.
other
It's like,
stuff.
don't we live in a capitalist society? Why, when there's more demand, why don't you just make more? Like, I don't understand. Should I just open a company and start making more and selling them cheaper?
That's what other people are doing. Yeah, it's $1 per strip.
Well,
yeah.
A whole bunch of people here in the chat and in the group want to do a study, want to be a part of it. Definitely are ready to do that. So, I mean, I was envisioning down the road 1,000 people, but if we can even start with just a basic survey, if that would be helpful.
Let me do this for you. I have a research team that I can just call. So I'll even ask them, because I got to talk to them anyway about the things I'm talking about doing, and I can ask them that question. Let's see what they say, and because at the end of the day, with a big audience like this, how about we just hear from the experts who know, and then we'll start there, and then you kind of hold your hand a little bit. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. What we don't want to do is go through this process, and then you have those people who are going to be poking at you, saying see, and then they want to invalidate it, because you're going to get that even if you do it perfectly right. So let's do that research. Definitely
so you're saying that we can do our own study? I mean, I assume that you have to be a doctor or a scientist. I could just do a study.
Yeah.
I could just go to some journal and say, okay, I did this study. I followed these scientific principles.
I think that let's clarify. I mean, I think that you have a lot more capacity than you think. So, but this is the key. There are things that may need to be checked boxes. So if they say you have to have this type of reviewer who's a doctor or whatever, so we can figure that out. So, wow. But I don't think that there's any barrier. So let's make that happen. So
I may yet get to be a scientist, even though I didn't finish my PhD. I'm an MA. That's good enough.
Yeah, we got to get this ball rolling. So we got this. So don't worry. Even if you think about our friend with Meet RX, I mean, he's kind of like leading the ship, but he's got some other folks that's going to be doing most of that work. So John Baker. I mean, we'll figure it out. Things are complicated, but not necessarily, right? Mm-hmm. All I know is that this is a mission. I can feel in your voice. This is your passion, your mission. So there's no barriers. It's just about what do we need to do, and let's get to doing it. That's how I see it.
Exactly.
Amen.
All right, so I love to be, a partner with you on this and to continue to check in with you. And to everybody on the stream, I was talking to Dr. Hampton earlier about how I'm trying to create a course that will help us as a community be able to, to learn and understand how to implement this way of eating into our lives. And I think we get a lot of confusing information all over online, and that's really difficult. And then I think there is a lot of experimentation, and you have to have a curiosity about the human body and an interest in some scientific experimentation, because everybody's body is a little different. Some things work for some people and other things don't. And so I'm hoping that, providing a course will help you to kind of figure out how to do that for yourself. Because a lot of people are not interested in doing that, but, right. It has to get done. So I'm hoping to do that. And I'm hoping that, perhaps I can run things by you, and you will, let me know if I'm saying something glaringly ridiculous. That would be helpful.
I see at Robust Penny and others who have, you know, done the whole Twitter thing. I want to thank everybody that, kind of followed me on Twitter. Brentwood Mom 45 just did it. Thank you for doing that, because you will find that the conversations in those spaces are really helpful to provide context. And I think over time you'll build a foundation of knowledge that, not that you're trying to win the conversation at the at the dinner table, but even for your own validation, your own comfort, that you're not doing anything harmful, that you're not just following some trend. There are some very smart people who will continue to debate, but you can't argue with what's happening to you. And I've never felt better. I'm not carnivore completely yet. I'm actually inspired by you guys, but do it. But like I said, today I've only eaten meat, and I'll probably have a vegetable and more meat, but I'm as close as you get. I pretty much do probably 20 carbs a day max. So I feel I've never felt better. I mean, I feel like I'm 30. I don't feel like I'm 52. I feel like I'm 30. I just can't express to you guys. And even tonight, this is an exercise night. I'll probably be working out in an hour or so, and I feel like doing it.
Awesome.
So I mean, I remember like work. I saw like I had like 20 something virtual visits today. We're doing this, and I don't feel no tiredness. It's just the weirdest thing. So I just think that for those who haven't tried this, they're missing out.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's an awesome statement to close on. For those of you who have not tried this, you're missing out. I've been saying it for ages, but the doctor is saying that.
That's
so
right.
Now you know. Now you know.
Excellent.
So everyone really loves you and has so appreciated the conversation tonight and everything that you've said. We are stunned by your brilliance. I did not know that you're almost on your way to having 3 major graduate degrees.
Yeah, it's insane.
You're active
I'm still
on
trying
Twitter.
to making mom proud. That's all.
Yeah. You're active on Twitter. You're on YouTube, and you're on and you're also on podcasts. I guess wherever
Definitely
podcasts are found.
Instagram. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And but I really encourage people to do YouTube also and a podcast, because I think that those are going to be a big focus. I'm going to continue to tweets easy to me, but creating content for the podcast, you have to think about it and make sure you ask the right questions. So I'm going to really try to be thoughtful and ask them hard questions. I'm going to, ask them. I may ask, I'm going to ask Joan Iflin. Food. Some people don't believe there's such thing as a food addiction. So I got to come at her. Say, I need you to stand before your colleagues and say why they don't know what they're talking about. So we're going to ask them tough questions, and then that way. But my goal is to get my colleagues who don't believe it to think outside the box. Yeah.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Thank you. All right, everybody. So before we go, hit the like button if you didn't already do it. Hit the like, subscribe, and the little bell so you can get notification every time I put up a video. And I'll see you soon, and definitely go and follow Dr. Hampton everywhere. There's lots of links in the description, and hopefully we'll get to do this sometime again soon, and we'll continue the conversation. All right, thanks a lot. Have a great night, everybody. Bye.
All right, take care, guys.